Throughout history, there have been hundreds of execution methods used to take the lives of a condemned person or a victim. Throughout the Second World War, millions of civilians were killed, and many were executed at the hands of evil death squads such as the Einsatzgruppen. The Nazis would try to test different methods of killing civilians as quickly as they could, and for a long time they would round them up, force them to dig their own graves whilst firing squads were stood over them. It was a conflict that saw horror come to most towns, cities and villages inside of Europe, and the concentration camps also expanded and were made in many Nazi-occupied countries. These camps were notorious for their evil treatment of prisoners, and horrific SS guards such as Rudolf Höss, the commandant of Auschwitz, would test the most efficient way of killing that did not burden his SS officers with the psychological trauma of having to fire. He would test the use of gas inside of Auschwitz, and across the camps millions of people were sent to gas chambers. But experiments to execute in different ways continued at sites, and one method which was used was by using freezing cold water, which became known as a death bath or the death shower. But why was this one of history's most brutal execution methods? Join us as we find out, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. One of the most barbaric concentration camps used by the SS during World War II was Gusen. It was a subcamp of the huge Mauthausen complex and was located inside of Upper Austria. To begin with, the camp was mostly made up of Polish prisoners, but then following deportations, huge numbers of other prisoners were sent and imprisoned at Gusen. It was located nearby to a number of granite quarries, and the inmates would be forced to conduct grueling and hard backbreaking work there mining the granite, which was then used in the huge Nazi building projects all across Germany. The inmates were treated terribly by the guards, and because of a lack of food and water and good sanitation, the average life expectancy of an inmate of Gusen was just at the time around 6 months. This meant that within half a year of entering the camp, they would be dead. The prisoners kept arriving at Gusen in a steady stream due to the deaths, and the conditions were so poor, and if someone did not work hard enough, they could be beaten to death by the capos or the guards. Also, each minute of the day, they were watched over by guards in watchtowers, who would turn their guns on the workers if they were just walking too slow. One man, a capo named Wolf, was actually a prisoner, but was given some power, and he executed prisoners himself by hanging them, and he would then stamp on their bodies. Anyone with an ounce of power at the site quickly went power mad. The inmates who arrived at Gusen would have to run to test their fitness, and those who did not pass the test would be executed immediately and killed. When the first 10,000 prisoners arrived there, it's believed that 3,000 were instantly executed. But in August 1940, 2 inmates managed to escape, and 800 men in their work detachment were ordered to run carrying rocks, and they were beaten awfully by the guards and were then forced to stand all night without food in the roll call yard. 14 prisoners died in this incident, and the 2 men who were captured were beaten to death. For all of these reasons, Gusen was a terrifying and horrific sight of punishment and evil, but further horror would occur as one SS man developed a new method of execution. 35,000 people died at Gusen, but there was also mass executions that were carried out, and it was the death baths or the Totenbaden which became notorious at Gusen. SS Commandant SS Hauptsturmführer Karl Kiemelski, who himself was known for being a brute, would introduce a new execution method at the camp. He would introduce the death baths to Gusen, and this was where inmates, who were said to have been too sick to work or were ill, were forced into a bath of ice-cold water. This was either used in a bathtub, or the men were forced to stand under high-pressure jets of freezing cold water, like a shower. In winter this was a death sentence, as the temperatures would be below freezing, and the inmates within minutes would be killed by the cold shock and then hypothermia. The death baths, it's believed, killed hundreds, as the SS men and guards would force weak prisoners into the shower blocks. Many were killed by heart failure, caused by the instant hypothermia. Also, the drains of the showers often got blocked very quickly, as they could not cope with the water pressure and the amount of it. Prisoners would have no escape, and they would often drown in the shower. It's been debated also that the SS deliberately blocked the drains to make this happen. Anyone who refused to go in the death baths would be beaten brutally, and bludgeoned by the guards and sometimes even bludgeoned to death. The execution method was used mostly only at Gusen, and it was said to have been too inefficient. The Nazis were focused on killing as many people as possible, and they decided that this was not the way to do it. Some victims, it's believed, also survived their time inside the showers, but days later they would succumb to pneumonia. But in January 1942, the death baths of Gusen stopped being in operation, and they took the lives of around 300 prisoners. It was an execution method which was aimed to shock the body into shutting down, and it was one which showed the evil of the SS. The guards would utilise the cold weather also to kill prisoners, as they would be forced outside of their barracks in large groups in the freezing cold, and each night dozens would die with this treatment. But the death baths were evil and disgusting. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.